Now let's create the panel base underneath our individual cells. So once we have our cells laid out, let's begin to create kind of a base. And so we'll start by just bringing in a polygon primitive, and let's bring in just a cube. Now you can see how our cells are kind of off center here. So let's go ahead and take our individual cell rows. And so you can see all these rows here. I'm going to select, and I'm just control clicking on each one of the individual cell rows. And let's do a control G. What that'll do is take those out, put them in a new group, and then those empty groups we can delete. Now this new group, let's go ahead and go to modify. We'll center the pivot so it's right in the middle. And then what I want to do is snap it over here. So let me hide the cube. So control H. Let's select this group, and I want to snap it. So hold down X. I'm just going to move it over here. Let's turn on the wireframe so that we can see it. And so you can see how this is now, the center of this is snapped right to the origin point, which is what we want. Okay, go ahead and bring the cube back, and then we can begin to add a little bit of shape to it. So instead of doing anything with the creation node, let's just go ahead and begin to manipulate the shape using our transform tool. So we'll kind of scale it down a little bit. I don't have any divisions on it, so I'm just going to kind of make it the rough size, and just so it comes right outside of these points. And you can come into the top view of the wireframe and see that a little bit better. We'll go ahead and scale this out to something like that. Okay, I want to add a little bit of visual interest to this cube by sort of beveling the edges. Let me go ahead and take this down a little bit. Bring it right underneath here. And so you can see how the edges of these pieces are sort of beveled. And so I want to echo that in the edges that we have here. And so one of the ways that we can do that is to just use bevel, but we'll use it in a slightly different way. Whereas we used bevel before to just add a little bit of detail along these edges, this time we'll actually use it to begin to shape the model. So we can take this edge here, and if we go to polygons, edit mesh, and bevel, you can see it creates a really large bevel at first. So we'll take the offset, and we'll just kind of take this down a little bit. Now the angle doesn't match up exactly, but we do have that geometry now added. Okay, so it kind of knocked that corner off. If we come into our model here, you can see I sort of want it to match up with maybe this angle. And so I'll go to component mode, select a vertex, and let's kind of move this vertex over. And I'll kind of move this one over a little bit as well. So we kind of get that angle matched up right there. Okay, we can sort of do the same thing maybe over here. So I'm just going to select this edge. Now just drag across it so I know that all those edges are selected. Now if I deselect these and these, I know that only that edge facing away from me is selected. So just that corner edge you can see here. So we'll go ahead and again bevel, bring that offset amount back, and we just want to add it in, and then we can get a little bit more control over it. And I just want to move it in a particular axis, so I don't want to move it off. So just using the Z-axis here, and then here we'll use the X-axis to bring this over, just so it matches up with the edges of that. Now if you want to do the same sort of thing on all the edges, you can. Okay, but I think I'll just go ahead and do it with that particular, the opposing edges, kind of just make it a little bit more interesting. Now one of the things that you'll notice here is if I go ahead and I just want to only see the base for now, so I'm going to go to show, isolate, view selected. You'll notice that we've sort of been working with four-sided polygons and some triangles. Here we now, because of the bevel, have a big n-gon at the top. So an n-gon is a polygon with more than 4 sides. Because we've beveled those 2 edges, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. And so what we can do is kind of tessellate that before we do anything else, and that is to kind of draw across and create a new kind of quad layout because of this new geometry that we have here. And so one of the ways we can do this would simply be to right-click, shift right-click, split polygon tool, and then we can begin to, let's say, draw from here all the way across, continue this down, and just meet it back up on the other side. And that turns that into now a quad here, and we still have a 5-sided polygon here. So we can hit G to go back and repeat that tool and just come across in this direction now. Come down straight here and then meet up again at the bottom. So it just makes things a little bit cleaner. Now we want to see the solar cells again, so we'll go ahead and turn off View Selected. I want to have another little ridge that sticks up, and right now we don't have the ability to do that. So I'm going to right click and go to Faces. If I click on the whole thing, it's going to select the entire object, but if we have a loop, as we showed before, if I click on one of these and then Shift double click in the direction that I want to select, I can select all the way around. And now what we can do is go to Extrude. Okay, we can add a little bit of thickness, and that'll give us a nice little rim that we can raise around the surface. Okay, so then we can select those faces just as we did on the individual cells. We can extrude those up a little bit, and then we can start to add a little bit of detail here. So maybe on this inside edge, we want to just bevel it very slightly. And again, you can come in the options of bevel if you want to change this width, and you can see that we don't have to modify that offset now because it's automatically added. We can come in here and maybe add, let's do our bevel again, and this time we'll do it maybe 0.3 to make it a kind of a wider bevel. And again, those things can all be changed over there. That just gives you your nice base. Now once you've got that, go into your outliner. We've got our cell group, which we can call that cell group, and then we've got our cell, our panel base. So we can name this something like panel base. We can select both of these, so select and then shift select that, group it together again, Control G, and we can call this in just panels group maybe, and then we can now manipulate this as one piece. So we started with something very, very small, duplicated it, started to add around it, and now we're just starting to build up with the complexity of our model, which is kind of the way that it works. So once we've got this panel built, the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and start to duplicate and place these panels in position. So we'll go ahead and do that next.